Welcome to our latest edition of Conversations with Coaches. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Charlie, who's going to be talking to us about futsal coaching and also the bursary that he got from Active Kent and Medway. Afternoon, Charlie. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you coach and where you do so?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lou. So my name is Charlie. I am a sports development officer at the University of Kent. That's my full-time job. And outside of that, I coach futsal. So I'm very involved in the futsal scene in Canterbury and in the Kent area. So I mainly coach futsal for Kent United Futsal Club. Youth teams, but also the University of Kent men's team and the Christchurch men's team as well.
Oh, do you have to split loyalties then by coaching both universities?
Varsity is going to be interesting, yes, that's for sure. But no, at the moment it hasn't been an issue. I've been coaching the men's team at the University of Kent for the last academic year. Christchurch will be a new experience for me. That's something that I will discover from September onwards.
Okay, great. So how did you get into coaching futsal?
Well, I guess I started getting into futsal just as a player a couple of years ago in 2019, and then COVID happened shortly after. So we took a break from futsal because being an indoor sport, we couldn't go back as quickly as all of the outdoor sports. But then when futsal eventually came back, I got back into it as a player, and then the idea of coaching was not something that I was keen on to start off with because I didn't think I would enjoy it, but I thought it would develop potentially my understanding of the game and also to help other people understanding of their game as well. So that's how I kind of got involved with coaching.
Okay, so have you had experience of coaching other sports or activities before, or is this your first sort of experience of being a coach?
With futsal specifically, no. As part of my role as a sports development officer at the University of Kent, we do run children's camps. So I do a bit of coaching then and there, but nothing to the extent of what I have been doing over the last 12 months with futsal. Okay,
so tell us a little bit more about that last 12 months with futsal then.
It's been busy. I've been keeping busy. So my role now is I manage Kent United Futsal Club. So I don't necessarily coach the men's team, but I'm involved with. I am the secretary. I'm the treasurer. I do a lot of things as part of that. But with regards to coaching, Kent United Futsal Club partnered with Canterbury Eagles Football Club. Because Canterbury Eagles Football Club approached us and wanted to offer futsal sessions for their youth teams. So for 3 hours a week, we deliver futsal sessions to 3 of their age groups, so 1 hour each, at Barton Manor. Okay. And that started in February of this year, and it's been ongoing ever since, and we're looking to grow that from September onwards.
Okay, and what age groups are they? So they're youth teams. Is it start from their really little ones and go up, or?
Yep. So we do from under 8s all the way to under 14s.
Okay.
But from September onwards, we're looking to increase that and have a 15-16s team as well.
We'll come on to that in terms of the challenges of coaching adults and children and the differences. But so you accessed a bursary through Active Kent and Medway earlier in the year to get you to do the coaching qualification for futsal.
Yes.
How was that experience for you? Was that your first formal coaching course that you've ever done?
Yes, okay. It was. In terms of an experience, it was great. It was a great opportunity to network as well with other people involved in futsal. Futsal is very different to football in the sense that it's a much smaller community at the moment than football. So it was nice to meet a lot of coaches that are involved in futsal either in the Kent or London area, so southeast really. And in terms of the course itself, I thought it was really good and really helpful to better understand my knowledge of the game as well. And it's also interesting to hear different people's perspectives on how to get a message across to other coaches and how to transmit, an idea that you might have in your mind, something that you think of as simple, but actually relaying that information to someone else is a lot more difficult than it sounds sometimes.
And did you find that on that course you had people that perhaps had coached football before, or was it all people that were generally futsal coaches as well?
No, I would say so. A lot of the coaches that were there were football coaches or coaches with football backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So luckily I I had a pretty good understanding of the rules of futsal, which wasn't necessarily the case for everyone. So yes, I kind of went in there, and the course itself was great. The content I was pretty familiar with, so I found it very accessible and easy to digest. Whereas for a lot of other coaches, a lot of the time was spent taking notes or asking a lot of questions to questions that I knew the answers to, if that makes sense. But still, nonetheless, really, really good experience.
And in terms of that coaching qualification, how it's different to a football coaching qualification, but it aligns, does it, with the levels of football coaching as well? Because some of the people listening might not know how it works. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yep. So the course that I did is called the National Futsal Course. And that is a course that you need to do to then go on to do your UEFA B futsal course. If I used football terminology or football coaching badges, it would be the equivalent of what used to be called a level 2, which is now a UEFA C license.
Okay. And that's what you attended, utilising the bursary from Active Kent and Medway, was to do the equivalent of your level 2?
Yes.
And how did that course, so from a level 2 football, it used to be a few days sort of in meeting people, going through the practical side of things, then you'd have an assessment. Did you have that same thing through the futsal course in terms of did you have to go away, do some work and then come back and do an assessment?
There wasn't an assessment per se. There was 2 days of physical delivery where we were there with the coaches delivering the course. And a lot of time was spent on the court, and then in between those 2 delivery days, there were some online modules which we had to complete.
Okay.
So yeah.
And so you've done that as a kind of a formal qualification. What else do you do to upskill yourself as a coach and develop your knowledge?
When I have time.
Yeah, in between being secretary, manager, and everything else.
Yeah. No, to be honest, at the moment, not much. It's the sort of thing that I'm definitely looking to do moving forward, especially as my responsibilities kind of grow. But I think there's always an opportunity for people to learn from others, and that's something that I need to keep doing. So in terms of pursuing further qualifications, I'm not necessarily looking to do my UEFA B for futsal anytime soon, because it is quite a big commitment. But I'd like to surround myself with others who either are getting their UEFA Bs or who have different qualifications in futsal.
Okay. And I guess the network of coaches you met on the course, you still can connect with and speak to.
Yes, so that's the difference between futsal and football. The futsal community is quite closely knit, so it's very easy to go all the way to the top, and everyone's really accessible. From my understanding from futsal is everyone likes to share their ideas, and there's not really anyone who's trying to be selfish or trying to take credit for this or that. We just really want to kind of grow and improve the game of futsal. Okay. So it's really, really cool and fascinating to have that aspect, because I know what the football scene is like, especially here in Kent, having been involved with it over the last few years, and yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I really enjoy futsal.
Yeah. It feels quite sad though that people don't want to share and improve the game for everybody, but I guess there's the competition element.
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I would argue that more people playing the game is better than less people playing.
Of course.
Regardless of competition, but
there we go. So in relation to your coaching experiences, and I guess let's start with the youngsters. What have you learned, or what are your favourite things? I guess 2 questions there. What have you learned perhaps that you've applied from your course when you're coaching those sort of new to futsal compared to those that are a bit more experienced?
So from my perspective, futsal it is similar to football, but it is not. In a lot of ways it's similar to football, and in a lot of ways it's the complete opposite to football. So it's really difficult to try and balance the two. And especially coaching, say, the under-8s to under-10s group, that's something that's a bit tricky because they're full of energy. So you don't really want to spend too much time waiting around trying to explain things. You kind of want to get them playing. So it's really about trying to transmit the information and the knowledge that you have in a way that's accessible for them to digest and have fun with it, because you want them to keep coming back.
Yeah.
Right. So I would say that's been the main challenge. I tend to to prefer coaching the older kids because they digest information a bit quicker, and we're able to progress quicker than the little ones. But the little ones do have a lot of energy, so that is always good.
And I guess, as we've said, you've been involved in coaching futsal for not a huge amount of time. So you're still developing those skills and engaging those youngsters. And I guess your experience working and playing as an adult and being able to engage with them and building on those skills. So what's the difference then with coaching adults that you find?
Well, with coaching adults, I think the difference is, from a futsal point of view, you can definitely hone down on more specifics. So, for instance, a simple rule in futsal, every time the ball goes out of play, so we use court markings, so lines, so every time the ball goes out of the line, the clock stops. So it's based on a time system. And because of that, you have to pay a lot more attention to things like kick-ins, corners, set pieces, that kind of. And that is something that we can work a lot more with the men's or the adults rather than the little ones who just don't necessarily grasp that concept just yet. So I would say that with the adults, you can definitely take time to kind of practice on the set pieces, corners, really specifics with regards to, and as opposed to the kids, where you just kind of have to let them play really and kind of let them discover the game.
Which they can build on the technical as you go and the tactical parts of the game as well.
Yeah, and the technical element is very different to football, and that's something as simple as controlling the ball with the sole of your foot, for instance. It's not something that when you play football you'll do naturally, because the ball is bigger in football, so therefore you use the side of your foot because the ball's bigger you need a bigger surface area to control the ball. So little things like that. So when you're trying to explain that to a little 8-year-old, it takes a bit more time, right? So yeah, there are a few challenges to it, but for the most part, what I've found is the kids that keep coming back week in, week out do progress really, really quickly. And my hope is that by the time those kids, have done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years of futsal, by the time they're 16, 17, 18, and then they potentially, hopefully, look to play for an adult team, they're a completely different player.
And when you get them eventually at the university men's team, they've had a bit more experience than the ones that I guess you get now? Or
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So the experience of coaching kind of a university, I guess the difference with a university team changing year on year in terms of who comes in, what does that mean for you as a coach?
Yeah, it has its sets of challenge because every year we have a new group of first year students who come in, and a lot of them will have maybe a background in football but not necessarily futsal, so you do have to spend maybe a bit of time the first few months trying to get them to learn the little differences, the subtle differences, as I said, control the ball with your sole of your feet, little rules here and there also that change, just the intricacies of futsal. And that is something that you just repeatedly have to do every year, regardless. But that's what we have to do at the moment. I think to create this sort of pathway for kids in the county to start playing at a youth, until kids in the county start playing at a youth level, and then come to university, play at the university, and then hopefully play when they're adults. That's the pathway that we're looking at, basically.
Okay. So you've talked a lot about the technical things and the differences between football and futsal. What's your favourite thing about coaching?
I think my favourite thing would be and I touched upon this earlier, was when you have an idea in mind and you need to get that message or that idea across to a group of 10 8-year-olds or 10 15-year-olds or whatever the case is. I think for me that's been the toughest thing is I have an idea in mind, and for me it sounds so simple, but it's how do I get that across to someone who might find it more difficult to kind of grasp. And so it's actually breaking it down, taking the time to kind of reflect on how I might get that message across. A lot of reflection I think is needed as well, because we all have good days, we all have bad days.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to sometimes also understand that maybe my way of thinking isn't necessarily the right way of thinking, or is not the only way of thinking.
Okay.
Right? So sometimes you might have a certain drill that you have in mind, or you're letting them play a little bit, and you're thinking, oh, that pass isn't on, you should have done it. But then if you just kind of sit back and just let them play, they might still get to the end goal, really. The way they've gone about it is just slightly different, and maybe not one that you would have thought of. But it's just allowing them the freedom to kind of express themselves.
Cool. And is that a challenge that you've found for yourself? Because your experience of playing, and you've been successful as a player with your team, I guess as coaching, to try and balance the two and let it go can sometimes be quite difficult, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes I find myself wanting to step in, but I kind of have to hold myself back and just kind of let them play.
Yeah.
Because A, they have to discover that for themselves as well, in terms of their own development. But B, as I said, for me as well, it's also the fact that I don't have all the answers, right? And especially with futsal, which is such a chaotic game, or can be very chaotic, sometimes you just have to let them figure out, because they will get there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that because they chose a different path, that's the wrong path, if that makes sense.
And I guess in a game, you can't do it for them either, so...
No. I can't really help them out. No.
So, in terms of, as you kind of progress through, what are your future plans? Like you said, you've got another busy year coming up with the different groups that you coach. Where do you see yourself in the next few years with your coaching?
It's a good question. To be honest, I don't think I've really thought that far ahead just yet.
Okay.
But no, in terms of coaching, I think where I'd like to be is, well, I would like to coach both university teams. I'd like there to be more youth teams that come under the umbrella of Kent United Futsal Club. Granted, at that stage, I wouldn't have the capacity to deliver all of the coaching available. So it's also, for me, yes, my development as a futsal coach needs to improve, but also how can I kind of build a group or a team of coaches around me to help develop all of this and to help set this up, really.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we add to the back of this how they can get in touch with you if they're keen to do some futsal coaching.
Yes, definitely. You'd be surprised, like the amount of people, or the different people that are contacting me for all these things. So yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
So just as we kind of draw it to a close, what's thinking about a piece of advice that you've received, either as a player that you've taken into your coaching, or as through that coaching qualification experience that you've had, that you've really thought, that's something. It might even have been something you picked up through your work that wasn't necessarily, but what's a good piece of advice you've been given around coaching?
Good question. Good advice. Well, I haven't been involved in coaching long enough, to be fair, for me to necessarily give advice to people. But I would just say sometimes you don't have the answer, and that's okay. That's not a problem. You just have to kind of move forward regardless. So I would say just do a lot of self-reflection, because that's the only way you'll grow, and you have to accept that sometimes you will be wrong, and that there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to be able to take some criticism as well, I think, every now and then, and just challenge yourself, really.
Okay. So just before, because I've got another question now because of what you just said, reflection, how do you do it? How does reflection work for Charlie?
For me, it depends. So sometimes I'll take notes after training sessions, and based on the session plan that I had put together, this worked, this didn't work, and this didn't work because of this or this reason. This is the feedback I got from this player, or sometimes from a parent or from a coach. So a lot of times, it's a lot about note making, and then just kind of adapting things for future sessions.
Fabulous, because I think that's a question we all get told about coaching, and you need to reflect, but we don't always think about how do you do it, and everybody does it slightly differently. So it might be on the drive home, some people make a voice note and different things. So it's just finding the reflection that works for you, and then because I believe we're doing it all the time, even within a session, we're reflecting on it and acting on it as you've set something up and it's not working. So thank you for that tip around reflection. It's something I'm really keen to share. Thank you very much for sharing your time with us and talking to us a little bit more about futsal. And good luck on the rest of the coaching journey.
Thank you.